Hello, in this lesson we will be addressing some of the visual components of our game. We'll be applying a custom font throughout the menus to make them much more readable, and also a custom simple color palette that's consistent throughout the game. And you'll see just how easy this is to accomplish in Godot, and the techniques you learn here you'll be able to apply to really any visual node within your game. Let's first address the font issue. Overall, the font is far too small and a little generic. Godot's default font is not resizable, so to address this, we'll need to bring in our own custom font. One great place to find fonts is Google. For the game title, let's use this font called Luckiest Guy. It's very bold and readable. Download the font and unzip it into a folder we'll call Assets Fonts. Now that we have the raw font files, we need to create a couple Godot resource files, each for a given font size. One of those will be the medium size, and then a larger one for the sort of title size. On the inspector menu, go ahead and click Create New Resource button and choose Dynamic Font. From the font and then into font data, we can go ahead and drag and drop this file, the Luckiest Guy regular TTF file. Then in the settings, on the size, we set that size to 24. And then we can click Save and then Save As. And let's call it Luckiest Guy Medium. This will be our medium size. Now we can just duplicate this, and we'll call this one Title. So this will be the title size font. So then in the inspector, for this new file, go to Setting, and let's go ahead and set that size to 32. So now in the start game scene, we can go to the title node, and in the inspector within the theme overrides, and there's a font section and then font, we can drag and drop this Luckiest Guy title resource file onto that. And then you should immediately see the title rendered in this new font, which is much larger. We'll address the buttons and the finishing screen text in a moment, but for now, let's go ahead and address the color scheme. So let's dive into a simple color scheme here. And so I don't have a color theory background, so I cheat a little with, for me, I found this little site, huemint.com, and it just selects a color palette for you, completing just little simple 3-shade color schemes that you can use in your game. You can see here repeatedly clicking the generate button will randomly show 3 colors for a palette. Feel free to choose one you like, but for me, I'm going to go with this sort of high contrast, bright pink one, just to kind of stand out. I'll use white for the text, and then pink for the tiles, blue for the game pieces and buttons, and then finally this sort of almost black for the background. So now I have our color values recorded, and let's start applying that color. So first let's do the buttons on the start screen. So select the single player button, and in the inspector theme overrides, under style and normal style, we can click that empty spot and create a new style box flat. And for the color, we can set that to this 0961F4. That's the blue. To give the button text a bit more padding, let's go ahead and do a content margin of 10 on each side. And then while we're here, let's address the font for this button. So as we did with title, we can just drag and drop the medium font resource file this time into the theme overrides. We can now save the style we created and apply it to other buttons here. So on the style, click the drop down arrow and select save. Then let's just save this as button style box normal, we'll call it. And to address the remaining buttons for each one, we want to drag and drop this file we just created into the theme overrides, again, style normal section. And then for the font, we want to drag and drop that medium font resource file in a theme overrides fonts section. And now if we save our work, and we'll see a much improved start screen with our new custom fonts and colors for the buttons. We can spread things out a bit with the vertical spacing, using that padding. And then for the VBox, we can go to theme overrides, and again, those constants and separation. and set that to 30 to spread each of these out vertically. And then for horizontal, we can go to that HBox element, and in the theme overrides, just do the same. Set that separation to get a little more spacing there. Also, the fonts on the button is a little small, so let's double click the medium resource file and then go to settings, and let's change that size to 24 and save. And let's run again, and we can see the improvements. Of course, there's much more you can do, but this is a great start, and we've made a lot of improvement already. So let's now make similar adjustments to the summary screen. For consistency, let's add a title to this scene as it appears in the start game scene. So let's duplicate the existing title. Let's call it subtitle. And then change the title label's text to TicTacToe. And then drag and drop our title font to this title label. And then now let's go ahead and duplicate the title font, and let's call it subtitle for the resource file. And let's set its size to 48, and then drag and drop that to the subtitle label. Now to speed things up, we can select all the remaining labels and then drag and drop the medium resource file to their theme overrides font section. Finally, let's add a little more padding between the elements on screen. And in the theme overrides for the VBox, set the spacing to 20. And then in the contained HBox, let's set that spacing to 20 also. So now let's play the particular scene, and we can see the results to our changes here. Everything's a little more spread out and readable, and a little more appropriate for this video game. So that takes care of the fonts and the colors for the start and summary screens. Now let's go ahead and set the background color to the dark, almost black variant we chose on Hument website. A couple ways to do this. You could add a color rect behind the elements of each scene and set that color to this black. Alternatively, to solve this, we can do this in code with a single line in each scene. In the case, let's go with the code solution, since all of our scenes already have attached scripts for them. First, let's define this color value just in one place so it's easier to change. And we can do that with our GameState class. And let's just add a variable called game background color. Set the appropriate hex code value there. Now in each of our scenes, in the ready function, we can use the Godot provided visual server object to set the what's called the default clear color. And this effectively sets the background color for the scene. So in each ready function of each scene that we have, we can go ahead and make this call. And again, referencing the GameState class to get that color value. Now, if we run the game, we can see this black shade in all of the backgrounds of the scenes we made adjustments to. Okay, making great progress. So now let's address the game board. First, the tiles. In the game tile scene, we can change the color rect background color to the pink we chose. For the game pieces, in the game piece scene, or the sprite node, in the inspector, we can set the color of the canvas item's self-modulate property to the blue color we chose. Now, if we run the game, our new color choices are on the game board. In this case, we have chosen pretty loud, high contrasting colors. As you've seen here, it's pretty straightforward though to change these colors to anything you like, so feel free to do that. So now you have the skills to address fonts and colors within your game. And in the next video, we'll get into some visual effects to enhance the gameplay and menu interactions. And then in the final lesson, number 10, we'll get into applying sound effects and music to complete our TicTacToe game. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Likes and shares are always appreciated. And feel free to subscribe and bell so you don't miss any future episodes.